Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I'm going to be doing a review of The Tyranny of Faith by Richard Swan. This is the second book in the Emperor of the Wool series. I wasn't actually planning to do a review of this book. Normally when I'm doing a series, I'll read book one, review that, then read the entire series and then do a series review. But I actually thought I would do a review of this one because my experience with the first book was pretty lukewarm. My experience with the second book was a lot warmer. And I wanted to talk about it because I think there are a few things that I really appreciated in this second book that I really wanted more of, and I want to kind of shout that out and give you a sense that the series does get better as it progresses. This book picks up, I think, pretty much in the same timeline. Like we start up from the end of the book where the characters basically going to the kind of center of this world, and we pretty much pick up from that point. Helena continues to still be the main POV. I think that's going to hold up until the end of the series. And I was very curious about where this book was going to go. And I was very particularly curious to see where Von Volt's characters go. Because as we know at the start of book one, skip ahead 30 seconds if you haven't read book one, we know that Von Volt is going to decline, right? We know that there is going to be something that leads to his decline. We just don't know what it is. And we know that Helena obviously gets out of it. And so I was very curious to see like what was going to be perhaps the smoking gun, because my suspicion was that the smoking gun was going to kind of be set in this book and then it would play out a lot more in book three. And I think my suspicion is kind of somewhat true. But the thing that I really loved most about this book is the fact that the world building was a lot more enriched. That was one of my biggest issues in book one, was the fact that we pretty much had like no world building. And I am one of those people, I don't need to have tons of world building, but I need to have a sense of the world and what it looks like. It just makes it easier for me to visualize it. It makes it easier for me to feel like I'm a part of that world and be in the character's head. And I really felt like that in this book. So kudos to Richard Swan for being able to like really invest in that and really enrich this world overall, because that was the thing that I was really looking for. The other thing that I really liked is I really liked the development of certain characters. Like Von Volt's character continues to be, without a doubt, my favourite. Such an interesting character, such an interesting battle that he has with himself about his position in society and about the role of justice in society, both the physical justices which he is one of, but also justice as a concept, right? And I really liked his relationship with certain characters, particularly one character. I'm not going to say which one because I don't want to spoil it, but I really, really like the way that he was interacting with all of the characters. We're seeing him be a version of himself that we haven't seen before in book one, and I quite like seeing that. The thing about Von Volt is that he is a very morally grey character. You buy into certain things that he does, but there's other things you're like, why are you doing that? And it's very disconcerting because you then wonder whether that's going to be the thing that leads to his downfall. I don't know yet whether that is the case, but I really like being a part of that journey. Kind of reminds me of how KJ Parker writes morally grey characters, which for me, he is one of the best at that, and he will continue to be one of the best at that because he's just phenomenal at it. Richard Swan, I think, the way he does character development, specifically as it relates to Von Volt, reminds me of that, and that's always a good sign. Another character that I really liked was Bressinger. Bressinger is essentially Von Volt's right hand, and I think he really comes into his own in this book. I just like his quippy nature, and he's a fighter, you know, he's always very loyal, very fierce, and that's the sort of character that I like, because I can kind of relate to that character in certain ways, and I think, again, very morally grey, but you see him more for the good that he exhibits than the bad. And that's, you know, the sort of character that I really love. And then we have our main character who, I'll be honest, not my favourite character. She's definitely an unreliable character. She's definitely an unreliable narrator. Helena is one of those characters that you don't necessarily have to love to like this book though, because even though she is retelling the story and she is giving her opinions, I think she separates herself enough from the conflict that you can also come to your own conclusions, which I like, and that is a testament to Swan's writing style. My biggest issue with Helena is the fact that she is just very insecure, and I just don't like insecure characters. And that's not to say that, you know, they have to be 100% confident or anything like that. Obviously, that's not the case. But I really don't like it when insecurity manifests into pitying and self-loathing. I really don't like that. like, you can be insecure, but then use that to better yourself. Use that to surround yourself with a certain type of person, or learn more, or, you know, whatever it is, right? Like, basically improve yourself, and then you kind of get over that insecurity. But she never does that. I don't think she ever does that. I think people give her opportunities to improve, but she never puts herself forward, and I just don't like that in a character that I'm meant to be following for 3 books. I just can't buy into it right now. She doesn't really change in this book, in my opinion, and I found her growth to be pretty minimal, to be honest, and that's kind of disappointing. The other thing about her is that she has a lot of jealousy towards other women, and that is just a trope that I don't like. I don't like it. I really hate it, as a matter of fact. The women hating on women, whatever, for whatever reason, just grosses me out. I also find it to be quite lazy writing, to be honest, but I think it, to be fair to Swan, I do think it's very in tone with her character, given that she is just a very insecure person, and she just is constantly feeling sorry for herself. And to be honest with you, I don't really think she has a reason to be. She has a tragic backstory, but who doesn't have a tragic backstory these days? Like, use that to better yourself, not to make yourself feel sorry for yourself 99.9% of the time, if you know what I'm saying. So that was probably my biggest issue with the book, was actually with our main character. But like I said, I think Swan does a good enough job of distancing her from her recounting of what's happened in a way that you can separate her from the story, if that makes sense. The next thing that I really liked about this book was the pacing. I think the pacing was spot on. I think the writing was really good. I think the way things continue to develop in the story feels right. And I think I'm really excited to see how things play out in book 3. The only other thing that I will mention that I didn't like was this leaning into kind of sci-fi elements. I didn't actually know that there was like a sci-fi element to this, and I don't know if you could call it sci-fi, but for me it feels like sci-fi because there's a lot of discussion around like time and space and about astral planes and things like that. Like, I'm playing a game right now called Control, and like literally it's all about astral planes, and that for me is a very sci-fi concept, not really like a fantasy concept. So there is this blurring, in my opinion, between sci-fi and fantasy that I wasn't really expecting, and I don't know if I like. Like, I don't know if I enjoy that. Like, I think I prefer my fantasy to be fantasy and my sci-fi to be sci-fi, and I want to classify sci-fi versus fantasy. That's a separate video for another day. But I definitely think this is blurring into sci-fi too much in a way that I don't necessarily like. That's not going to be the case for everybody, though. Very much a personal preference thing. You like what you like, you dislike what you dislike. It is what it is. So that was the other thing. And then the last thing that I will mention that I really liked was the way that the last like 100, 150 pages played out. The pacing really picked up. I think Swan really improves in his ability to create tension as well in this book, that I just really liked. I felt I was on the edge of my seat. I read the last like 20% pretty quickly, partly because my most anticipated read of 2024 came out the same day that I was trying to finish it, but also because it lends itself to be read quickly because there's so much happening and so much is going down that you just want to know what happens. Really curious to see what happens in book 3, which we're reading as part of my Patreon. That is another thing that I will say. I think it did increase my enjoyment reading this alongside my patrons. I think at the time that I finished it, nobody had finished it because I was a little bit in a rush so that I could read, like I said, my most anticipated read. But it was nice to kind of get their live comments as well as they were reading it, because it kind of helps you pick up on certain things that maybe you didn't pick up on, and that's always fun. So that's my review of book 2. Expect a series review once I finish book 3 with my patrons in March. Very, very excited to finish it off. Very excited to see how it ends. And let me know if you have read it. Let me know if you finished the series, but don't spoil it, and whether you think the series as a whole ends on a high. I gave this one a borderline 3.75, maybe 4 stars. I think I might end up rating this one higher though after I finish the series. We'll see. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in my next one. Thanks for watching, folks. Stay safe, take care, and I will see you soon. Bye.